Yeah, it's going.
Yeah,
It's recording.
Keep that in.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Sports Medicine Podcast. Now I know why everyone doesn't have a podcast and doesn't print money. Turns out it's difficult to find time to do this when you work full time.
Yeah, it's been a minute, but that's life when you actually have a job. So
Hey.
it's the end of the year. Like, I think everybody in my mind, I'm always like, oh, the end of the year is going to be chill, and it ends up being a rush to the finish line. Like,
Yeah,
I'm straight up not having a good time, but all we
we're
gotta
gonna
do
have
is
a
get
good
to
time for these
December
next 45
22nd.
minutes.
Yeah, precisely, and then we can return to hell.
Sweet. Okay, so instead of an intro question, Hayley and I thought we would mix it up and tell all of our fans and all of our listeners about our Spotify Wrapped.
Yeah, and again, super timely since Wrapped came out like over 2 weeks ago, but we're bringing it back. We're bringing it back.
I celebrate Wrapped all December.
Exactly. It's a month of recap. But I feel like I know you didn't. I sent you mine, but you didn't send me yours. But I'm just going to guess who your top artist is.
Okay. Well, yeah,
it's probably Taylor Swift. It's not hard.
You were correct. I will say though, I don't know if next year it's going to be Taylor Swift because Zach Bryan was very close behind. I ended up in the top 3%.
That's kind of weak
for both of them though. So I listened to both of them almost only.
Okay. That's impressive. Yeah. So you think Zach Bryan's going to overtake Taylor Swift in 2024 in your listenership?
I can see it.
Are you already training for that? Like, you got Zach Bryan on loop these days just so your 2024 is primed? And
I like listening to Zach when I can listen to Zach pretty much anytime, whereas Taylor Swift is more like, like steak with like a nice glass of wine. It's not something to overdo. It's like it's a gift.
Okay, yeah. So she's a special occasions lady for you. That's
Correct.
So interesting. I feel like most people with Taylor Swift, it's like their bread and butter. They're listening to it from the moment they wake up until they go to sleep. So for you, it's a treat?
I would say yes, yeah. But I mean, she still was my top artist as well. So
you're still putting in your work with Taylor.
Yeah. So I have a lot of stake.
Yeah. And me, as somebody who hates Taylor Swift, like with passion. So I was really shocked and a little peeved and also like intrigued to the Spotify system. So Taylor Swift was my number 2 artist. That being said, I think I only listened to like 2 Taylor Swift songs this year, and both of them were remixes. So I listened to the Lavender Haze remix,
which is incredible.
Yeah, like the remix is bumping. The original's a little too slow for me. Like, again, I don't like, there's certain Taylor Swift songs that I do actually like. I'm not going to say I'm a total hater. Like, I feel like it's kind of hard to be like a total Taylor Swift hater. But like, I listened to Lavender Haze remix and the Anti-Hero remix because they're both too slow. Like, I need some more pep in my step, Taylor. And I can't believe that they put them. I was surprised that they categorized them under her because I don't really listen to any other Taylor Swift yet. She was my number 2 artist, yet I rocked out to those songs. So Spotify gives her credit for those remixes, which I think is kind of shitty.
I mean, she owns the song.
Yeah, I know, but like I know
she did all the hard work.
I know they mixed it, so
like, hey,
I guess you're right.
Like I
guess you're right.
That's like when I get an A on a test in college that you had the study guide for. You did all the work.
Yeah, but you get the A.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I guess I do. I see it. I get it. But that's just, I guess that's me defending my Taylor Swift being my number 2 because she shouldn't be my number 2. But I did listen to the Anti-Hero remix like 500,000 times. So, all
right.
Blame me for the remix, not the original.
So, I have to ask now, because you sent me. So I'm looking at yours right now on my phone, and you the text was "No judgment, please," and then also one of the songs you just fell asleep to a lot. So it had to be that. So I saw the first song, and it's it says the number one song is "I'm in love with dot dot dot." So do you fall asleep listening to what is that T-Pain?
I'm in love with a stripper.
Yeah, is that what you fall asleep listening to at night?
Yeah, I'm in love with a stripper really calms me down. It's like, you know how people listen to the white noise fan?
Yeah,
That's my white noise
that's your
fan.
white noise.
I'm in love with a stripper. No, my number one song was I'm in Love with You by the 1975, but that is a great cutoff.
Ah.
Like that's pretty funny that it cuts it off right with, because that's pretty ambiguous. So yeah, my
Yeah,
top
there's a
song was
lot
I'm
of
in Love with a
songs that
Stripper.
could be.
I'm in Love with a Stripper is a banger.
It is a banger.
It's a good song. I'm gonna have to listen to it.
I'm not saying it's a bad song. I'm not
I'm
even
gonna
saying
have
I
to
wouldn't
listen
judge
to
if
it.
it was your top song, but
Yeah. See, this isn't fair. Okay, what was your so Taylor Swift was your top artist. Who was your number two?
Zach Bryan, then Haim, then Logic, then Connor Price.
All right, respectable. I forget you're a Haim person.
I'm obsessed.
Yeah, whenever I'm with you and you play 3 a.m., I'm like, wow, how does she know this song? I'm like, oh yeah, she does like Haim. She's a fan.
Saw them in concert for the first time, and
Really?
I could liken it to a religious experience or
Yeah.
like a first date. That goes really well. I don't know.
I was gonna say, dude, what first dates have you been on? Yeah, I mean, does this surprise you that my number 3 is Luke Combs?
It does a little bit. I was very, very surprised.
I love Luke Combs. And you saw him in Soldier Field. I'm kind of jealous.
Yeah, I was surprised by that and Rob Thomas, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I'm a big Rob Thomas person. Like Matchbox 20 and Rob Thomas. I don't discriminate. I love them both equally. Okay. Yeah, I am like a 55-year-old mother. I love Rob Thomas. The ladies love Rob Thomas and I love Rob Thomas. So yeah, I listen to like Real World by Rob Thomas. That may be a Matchbox 20 song. Like I listen to that like a lot.
What's who's Money and Fame about?
Money and Fame. Now that's a great to reference a previous pod episode. That is JT Real Muto, Philly's catcher, his walk-up song. And I was like, this song rocks. And it's really it's like a running song. It's got great cadence to it. So I listen to it when I run a lot because it's got like if I'm running a workout, like I listen to it because it's a good song. Would recommend. And it's his walk-up song. And I love JT. So Money and Fame. I Need to Breathe. You've heard of Need to Breathe. Like they do Happy. And there's like a couple other songs. I feel like you've heard of them. And they were like, my number 5, but that's because I listen to Money and Fame like a lot. Okay. Because I'm a serial, like my Spotify rap, like I can't post it because it's me like listening to the same songs on loop. I'm a big like loop listener. Like I listen to the same song on loop. Like today I listened to the same song for like half of my workday.
That's incredible. Yeah,
on loop. I don't know what it is. What's wrong with me? Diagnose me. Is that a problem? Do you do that?
No, I can't listen. I cannot listen to the same song like twice in a row. I can listen to the same song in one day. If I listen to it twice in a row, though, it drives me insane.
Oh my gosh. I'll literally listen. Like today, I listened to the same song.
I feel like I have other friends that are like that too. I think that's not, I don't think that's just a you thing, but I do find that very strange.
Yeah. I listened to Echo by Olivia Dean today, like literally on loop for like 4 hours while grinding.
Wow.
It's comforting. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why, like, if you ever see a song that I know every word to it, like every word to it because I listen to it on loop. I'm a great karaoke singer because the songs I know them well.
Okay.
Yeah. So you were a little surprised. Yeah, Luke Combs, but I love Luke Combs, so.
He was awesome in concert. Would 10 out of 10 recommend going to that.
Yeah, I've heard he's amazing in concert. Sounds just like he does in like while you're listening to him on Spotify. So I'm a little jealous. So I was jealous you were there. Next
year I'll bring you with.
Thank you.
We can do a live episode from our seats in the nosebleeds.
Recording live from Luke Combs. I'm on my 15th Miller Lite.
Yeah, and you're in the nosebleeds, so there's nothing more athletic than that. You have to get up and down the stairs.
Yeah, I'm gonna need one of those like elevators.
Drinks in your hand. Yeah, like, pumping your arms and stuff.
Yeah. Well, good raps. You've got good taste in music, I guess.
Thank you. I don't know if I totally agree.
Yeah, I'm the first to say I don't have good taste in music. I can
Yeah, I don't think I
identify
do
a
either.
banger. I'm good at crowd pleasers. Like I know
Mhm.
the songs that get people like pregame playlists. I knock those out of the park. But when it comes to like quality music, don't look to me.
Yeah. So, listeners, let us know.
Yeah,
What was your Spotify Wrapped?
yeah,
Who has a worse Spotify Wrap, me or Haley?
yeah. Do yeah.
Let us
Oh
know.
wait. Okay, who had more minutes? That's the last thing
Ooh,
before we get started.
you're gonna crush me on this. I know it.
Really?
Because you said you listened to it like at work and stuff too.
Oh, I do listen to it at work. I also listen to a lot of podcasts,
I
including
I
our own.
only do podcasts during work. But I'm at
Oh, you suck.
16,500 minutes listened.
That's weak. I have
I know.
44,000.
Jesus.
I also like listen when I run and I listen to a lot of podcasts.
You heard it here first, folks. Haley thinks I need to run more.
I like how you get that from my diss. Like that is what you take from my diss. I think you need to just listen to more Spotify.
I'm reading between the lines.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'll leave it to you to take that personally.
Exactly.
Oh
One of these
man.
days, my
Yeah.
mile time will beat yours. It won't.
I was going to say,
He
am I
was like,
dead during these days?
yeah. He was like, was there an accident? Did I lose a
Yeah.
leg?
Yeah.
No, actually, if you lost a leg, you'd probably even be faster.
Yeah.
Like,
Cause I'd
isn't
have
that
one of
the
those
new thing
springy
now?
little blade things.
Yeah, like they're faster than actual legs.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if that's true, but I feel like I've heard that.
Maybe I should try that. Could you imagine? What a
Could
hack.
you imagine? You and I face to face because you've got those springy leg blade things.
And it's like close.
Yeah, and and I get
That would be
yeah.
fun.
That'd be a
Okay,
good race.
sorry. Back to
Yeah.
reality. We'll
Tangent alert.
yeah, we'll start the episode now, I
Yeah.
suppose. Okay, so I decided cuz I don't know if it's cuz the end of the year and I'm like trying to vent a little bit or why I wanted to discuss this topic today. But I thought it would be fun to debunk some common stereotypes or misconceptions related to female athletes and women's sports. So, if you're a listener that only listens to us when we talk about male sports, now would be a good time to probably head out, but also know that
No,
everyone's judging you.
they need to stay. They need to buckle their seatbelts and
You're
listen in.
you're
The
the
target
problem.
audience.
You're the problem.
It's
So, if you want to be part of the solution and be a problem solver and watch female sports, then yeah,
listen in.
then listen in.
Yeah.
I'll leave it. I'll leave that there. I think. I think that was a good call to action.
After you told them to leave and then you said, wait, no, come back in.
Well, I want people to want to stay.
You're right. This is all
I'm
voluntary.
not begging people to stay. I'm just saying, right there is a great example of maybe some of the things we're going to talk about.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right, so let's get into it. I'm going to start with the most obvious, and kind of go from there. But okay, so like misconception number 1: women are not as strong, fast, or athletic as men. Therefore, women sports are boring. So a couple things there. First, I looked up using an article from the good old the good old National Library of Medicine. Listeners, that's a great
Fancy.
database where you can go and get real studies, real facts that are checked by other people. But in that study, it did in fact confirm that men typically have larger muscle mass, have more of lean body muscle, and therefore did have stronger like results in strength like when compared to their female counterparts in stuff like bench pressing, squatting, lifting,
Yeah.
and anatomically that makes a lot of sense.
That makes sense. Back to episode 1 where we go into testosterone and all that good stuff. Like
Right.
that checks out. We're going to let the guys. I'm glad you can bench press more than I can, because I can
Right.
only bench press like the bar. So I'm
Right.
glad you can bench press more than me. Yeah.
So, in terms of the sort of the normal definite, like the Wiki or not the Wikipedia, the encyclopedic definition of strength, that is true. Women or like men typically are stronger than women. Not always either, but like when comparing
Yeah. Like,
one to one as best you can, like one male athlete to a female athlete. And that's pretty much where the comparisons and where that misconception stops. So women's sports are not boring, and respectfully, if you say that, you're dumb. So
respectfully.
women's sports, in fact, if you're a true sports fan, I believe that you are a bigger fan of women's sports because of the stats, because of the studies that we just talked about. Women don't have some of the, universe given strength that men possess. So a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, I feel like women's sports are strongly based in fundamentals of that sport and in strategy of that sport. So if you're a
Mm-hmm.
fan of that sport, then you'd enjoy that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like talking just about like an example I think of a lot. I always tell people, I'm like, people don't love to watch soccer anyway, because it's not like the most exciting game. But I always think like people who don't love to watch soccer, I'm like, oh, watch the women's game. It's way more strategic, way more technical because of their physical differences. They're not like they physically it's just they have differences. But I think like the game is, like you said, just so much more strategic, so much more technical. Yeah. And like I think you're right, like true fans of sport would appreciate like a real technical game or a really skillful game, playing the game, using other things than just like sheer strength and force to, overpower your opponent.
Yeah, and in a similar so obviously you have more experience with soccer. For basketball, I'll say, and this is, I mean, honestly, it's really cool if you watch women's basketball, even at like the high school level and younger too, as well as at the professional level. All like unlike a men's team where like if you just have LeBron or you just have Jokic or you just have Durant, your team is very, very good just with that one person. That is absolutely not the case for women's basketball. You need a team
Team.
that is really, really good.
I
So
agree.
most of the time, like the average points of women's basketball players scores compared to men are lower, but across the board, the points are much more shared and much more spread out
Yeah.
among the team. Which also, if you are on the team or if you are paying attention to women's basketball, it puts a lot of pressure on your three, your four, your fifth best person on your team to perform regularly very well and
Yeah.
at a high level.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, again, like you're if you're having a bad day and you're the fifth best player on the court, it's going to be could be really bad for your team, as like when you've got like a true star that again, like maybe in the men's game where they're scoring 35 points, whatever,
yeah,
carrying the game a little bit differently. You're right. Like it puts a little bit of different pressure, different weight on the players.
yeah, and so it's like, and then like on top of that, and I don't know how to put this across in words. Hayley, you might even be able to speak to this more as well, like with like kind of what you said with like soccer and stuff and like tennis and everything. But like I feel like that like a lot of times like a stereotype like for tennis it's women don't hit the ball as fast as men do or don't serve as fast. For women's basketball it's they can't dunk. For soccer the game is more, for women it's more technical. Men can kick a goal from x degrees out from the net or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like after those things are said, then it's all like, okay, well, how do we make the women's game more enjoyable to watch? Like, let's lower the dunk, like let's lower the hoops so that way women can dunk, or let's
Yeah.
make the field shorter for women and stuff. And it's like, how about we just enjoy like
The sport,
the
yeah.
sport and the technical feats that they already accomplish. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know why.
Why do they have to be equal? Like, that's,
Yeah,
like,
for them to be enjoyable.
yeah.
I totally agree
Now,
with that.
like, with the I think the women's basketball thing's a great example because I would always be like, maybe in my more naive days, I would always be like, man, they should lower the hoop and make the ball smaller so the women could dunk. And the ball's already smaller, but I was thinking like a little bit smaller so they could really
Mhm,
dunk,
mhm.
which I still will stand by that point a little bit. It would make, but somebody, I was talking to a women's basketball player about this and they were like, well, why do we have to make the game, why are we working so hard to, quote unquote, dumb down the game just so it's quote unquote equal? Like, they were like, why can't we just enjoy the game? It's different. They're different. Why can't we enjoy the differences as opposed to doing all these crazy things to make them equal?
Yeah, exactly, and I'm like, and I understand, like, dunking is super cool, obviously, it's
It's
super rare,
fun.
but, like, then why
Yeah.
wouldn't you, just, add that in as, like, a fun thing at, like, the All-Star
Now,
weekend?
and I also think too, like, it's just something we're so conditioned to men's sports that when
Right.
you don't see the elements of the men's game and the women's game, you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Why is this? And again, it's not better or worse. It's just different. The women's game is different because women aren't as tall as men. They're not going to dunk as much as the men are. But I think again, it's like our brains are just, we're so used to, because what's on ESPN, because what's our exposure is a lot of men's sports. Women don't always get that time in the prime time media. I think now you're seeing more of it, but not, nowhere near as much as you see the men's game. And I think like we're just conditioned, like, and again, I'm thinking the basketball example, I think is a perfect thing. Like, we're used to, like, people are so primed to seeing people dunk and to see people do crazy things. And I think when you don't see that in the women's game, they're like, whoa, 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 but that's just because all they watch is men's sports. And it's not saying it's better or worse. It's just because that we're so used to it. So I think it's like, why change, why don't we accept the differences and just enjoy
Well,
the game?
and it's like, I've seen it successful before, right? Because, like, there are, you know, freakishly incredible athletes and at the NBA level who can't dunk and are
Yeah.
celebrated for not being able to dunk.
Yeah.
Like, Kyrie Irving, Steph Curry, and I'm not saying they can't dunk.
Like in a
It's
game.
possible they've dunked a basketball before. I'm
Yes.
saying,
Like
like,
you're saying in a game setting, they're going to lay the ball in. Yeah.
they shoot threes, they pass dimes. Like, there are men athletes in the
Yeah.
exact same setting who no one is saying, oh, Steph can't dunk all the time. Let's lower the men's rim.
Yeah. Let's take it down to 9 feet so we can see
Yeah, so that
Steph
way
Curry.
everyone can dunk. That sounds
Yeah.
absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah.
so, yeah, let's just say that is a misconception, that is false,
Yeah.
and, maybe after listening to this, go watch a women's sport.
Yeah. Sit down and watch it. I think you'll enjoy it. It's entertaining. It's exciting. It's different. And that's okay. We can
Brings
accept the differences.
brings us to the next misconception, and honestly, this one is super fun because, like, I feel like this one there's really just not even a debate for it. Like, truthfully, like, it's just kind of false, and kind of what is just touted in the mainstream. So, misconception stereotype number 2: less people watch women's sports than men's sports. So, I will preface, and Hayley, you've already mentioned it. Like, men's sports, still currently in our year of 2023, um, are given all the primetime slots.
Yeah.
So, on one hand, if we're trying to only speak in facts, men's sports are at those prime times on cable and easily accessible to a mass
Yeah. They're
audiences.
not on ESPN Plus, with the
Right.
paywall. Yeah.
Right. Right. Okay. So, and then right there, again, that's where we're gonna stop, and now we're gonna kind of expound upon and let you know why that misconception is false. So, it's true. I feel like every time this comes on, people are like, look how many people turn into, like, the Super Bowl or the NBA finals every year. It's so much bigger than any women's championship. And right away, I want to, like, preface, the reason people tune in for the Super Bowl is because it's entertaining. And there's all this entertainment around the actual
Yeah.
game.
It's not about men's or women's. It's about, grandiosity of the event, I feel like.
Yeah, kind of like how NFL viewership right now is up because, you know, a certain someone might be dating a certain someone. People tuned
Yeah.
in for the Super Bowl to watch Rihanna as
Very
much
true.
so as they're tuning in to watch, you know, the actual event in the game. You know, same thing with like those commercials and stuff. So that like right there, like that game and that event alone, I would just pull out of this discussion completely.
Yeah.
Um, but now to like try and get into um you know, some more stats, and I'm just gonna name these off because truthfully, they are like not related to each other, but they're related to sports as a whole. So I want to like kind of say all of them, and then we'll kind of we'll get into the discussion a little bit more. Okay, so average, and this all of these stats by the way are an average. It is really hard to like and near impossible to like know if someone watched an entire sports game. Like this is all based on clicks and like time on screen and like stuff like that. So just know everything I'm about to say is an average. And then I've gotten this information from two different Forbes articles. Okay. So average viewership for the NBA Finals of 2023 was 11.64 million, slight increase from the year before. Average people that watched Game 5 of the World Series was 11.45 million, which was down 20% from the year before.
Yeah, it's because the Phillies weren't in it. Sorry.
Okay. Now I'll get into some women's sports here. And I've purposely picked these next three because I think so often it's always how many people watch men's football, how many people watch men's basketball compared to how many people watch like women's basketball, because that's really like the like only kind of
Yeah.
main
Mainstreams.
professional mainstream sport,
Yeah.
which also isn't even true. I mean, we have women's professional soccer, but it's again to your point, not talked about as much. So, but anyway, I'm gonna like so I picked these three purposefully. Okay, so women's soccer. So this past FIFA World Cup, England versus Spain, BBC records an average of 12 million viewers for the World Cup. This is the most watched television program in the UK. The second most watched television program in the UK of the year, behind only the coronation of King Charles III. Spain average viewership was 5.6 million. And then US group stage viewing was an average of 3.8 million, which was noted as an increase from 2019.
Yeah, and honestly, like that's pretty impressive because the game times for most of those women's games it was in Australia, so it was like really Australia, New Zealand, so it was like bad times of day for most of the United States, but
yeah,
it's impressive.
And they noted that they noted that a lot in the articles that even too for like the UK and Spain, it was like midday or something, like which is an amazing time to watch sports either. Like people have to work and stuff. Like so like the fact that people were tuning in at these kind of odd times too is a bit of a testament because you had to make it a priority to watch. Okay.
Yeah.
And then women's gymnastics, 16.8 million people on average saw Simone Biles take gold in Tokyo. And that was just one random, like one, I didn't even pick like.
Yeah, you picked like an event. Yeah.
Yeah, single event. Like I didn't go into, which I'm sure if I did, like it is, I didn't realize this because usually if I'm tuning in for the Summer Olympics, I'm going to be honest, I'm looking at basketball and swimming as my two kind of faves. Definitely trying to get more into all of them next year because now
I think you'd like gymnastics.
We're running a sports podcast.
You're right.
But
we got to tune in for that.
That's insane. 16.8 million people. Like that, you know, on average, that beats the NBA Finals. That beats the World Series. I mean, that's crazy. Just, you know, viewership. Okay. And then women's tennis. Coco Gauff's one delivered 3.4 million views on ESPN, which was up 92% versus last year's women's championship, making it the most viewed major women's championship ever. Yeah. The women's championship was the most streamed telecast of the tournament on ESPN Plus.
Wow.
So the people that are paying for that subscription were making it a priority to watch a women's sport, which is pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. And I mean, that was like such a great that Coco's run in the US Open was incredible. And the final was also, and again, that's like a game.
Oh my
Again,
gosh.
you watch that and you're like, you can't think that women's tennis is boring. It was like such a skillful match. And
No, you're on the edge of your seat the entire time.
the whole time it was such a good match. And, and she's a great story in US.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I picked those for a couple reasons. Like, I think on some of them you can be like, well, there's still less people watching women's sports. And I'm like, yes and no. Like the stats are suggesting that the number of people watching women's sports is increasing at an exponential rate, which is awesome. And in certain kind of one-off situations, we do have the viewership that similar like final matches, championship, like impactful games are getting the same sort of viewership, male versus female.
And I think I think back to, again, going back to Coco Gauff in the US Open, like the advertising and promotion around her final like, again, like if you promote it, like you promote your average male event, like they're going to watch. Like I just remember the promotion, there's so much promo for her final. And obviously it's a major championship, her first and it's also a tournament in US soil. So it's kind of, the perfect storm to really promo this event. But I think it's one of those things where you promote these events, these women's sports, like they do like they do for this even stupid men's games,
Right.
silly men's games, and they'll watch, I think it's one of those things like, if you
don't even realize like every weekend we get the and this week's Big Ten football matchup is one horrible Big Ten team versus another horrible Big Ten
they're putting
team.
the promo for Northwestern versus Iowa. And you're like, will these teams even get to, where they're like, again, promoing, and you're like, maybe I'll watch that game,
but Northwestern versus Purdue.
Yeah, a barn burner.
Even a better example.
Yeah, an even better game. But yeah, so it's just like, again, if they promo it, people will watch. And yeah, again, they put that game it was I think like a Saturday afternoon match for that final. Again, like you set an environment for success. You put this game at a time that's going to be successful, like they do for average men's games, and
Totally.
the people will watch and they'll have a good time. It's just sometimes the exposure isn't there because, again, that back to the misconception of, oh, it's not as exciting, or the people don't want to watch it. It's like, no, they do. It's just you're not putting it on TV, or you're not putting it on at a time where we're going to watch, or you're putting it behind a paywall because you think nobody really wants to watch this game, but they do. Yeah.
Well, I think we cleared that up.
I'm surprised you didn't bring up the women's Final Four.
I thought it was a bit of a the reason I didn't was I thought it was a bit of a catch-all to be because I feel like the way that people were describing it was look at they're now women's basketball is exciting.
Yeah.
Now we can tune into it and stuff. And it's no. It always was exciting.
Yeah, you're right. It was a lot of. It was
think that Pat Summitt is rolling over in her grave right now. That she's I started all of this, and now now it's
now you guys
off.
Pay attention. Yeah, and I think now I will say I think women's sports in the past year has really pivoted because of the Caitlin Clark effect. I think
Totally.
I think it's totally changed. You see. I mean, the women's Final Four, some would argue, was better than the men's Final Four. More exciting, more watchable. And also the women's Final Four this year did have a lot of storylines. You had Caitlin Clark, you had Iowa women's basketball, you probably one of the best players to ever play the game. And then LSU, also really talented, Angel Reese, they're a really packed storyline. So it ended up being a very eventful Final Four. But yeah, I think you're right. It's kind of a perfect storm. There were a lot of things going on, but the viewership for that was very interesting. And the promo for that was also it was promoted crazy, like a men's Final Four.
Yeah. Yeah,
but that's because they knew it. That's because I think that's they knew it would draw viewers because it did have so many compelling storylines, regardless of men's or women's. And it was, again, the men's NCAA tournament kind of didn't. The Final Four is just a weird group, and I think people weren't thrilled about the men's Final Four. Wasn't some exciting. I mean, it was interesting. It was who's gonna win, but nobody really cared. But the women's, people were you had, who was the Final Four? South Carolina, LSU, Iowa, which is insane because I'm saying this and I can think UConn won the men's, but who else was in the Final Four for the men? Isn't that interesting that I couldn't tell you the men's Final Four, but I can tell you the women's?
Yeah. Hold
Go
on,
Hayley.
look it up.
Now I gotta think, who was
Men's.
the fourth team in the women's Final Four?
Hold on, it'll come to me. Hold on, I'm looking up the men's one first.
Okay, I'm looking up the women's.
Okay. Uh,
Oh, Virginia Tech was the fourth team in the women's.
yeah.
Yeah, it was Virginia Tech, South Carolina, Iowa, LSU.
Here we go. Men's.
Yeah. It was
UConn.
yeah.
Miami, Florida.
Oh, yeah.
San Diego State.
Oh, yeah.
And Florida Atlantic.
Florida Atlantic. Okay, yeah. Yeah. A rousing bunch.
Yeah, that was. I mean, it's cool seeing like a 9 seed in the Final Four. Like that's
and
that's cool, but like I agree with you. Yeah, just not the same storyline.
I'm even thinking like the national championship was San Diego State versus UConn, and I don't even know if I watched that game, but I did watch the women's. I watched the women's.
Yeah, I watched the women's,
semi and the final.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So basically, I guess I think the reason I didn't want to include was because like
it's also
I didn't want to.
It's so
I didn't want to
cliche.
Feed into this. Yeah, into this cliche where it's like if you're not talking about basketball, football, or baseball, that then it's not like worth mentioning or worth talking about. And it's like the like greater part of the world would disagree with us.
Yeah.
Like football means something entirely different everywhere else except here. Similar to
literally
like the metric system.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then like I wanted to talk about these other athletes who are doing incredible stuff and have incredible strength and athleticism. And are maybe just not as, like you said, not as mainstream.
Yeah.
But equally impressive.
Yeah. And I think, the Olympics coming up will be really interesting because I think, like women's gymnastics is always huge viewership. And I think, don't always people are definitely watching the men's gymnastics, but women's US gymnastics is always, the past few Olympics has always been just for a long time it's been a big deal, but it'll be interesting coming up to like think about all the Olympic sports where women will shine.
I think that that covers that. And then actually I've weirdly transitioned all of these super well because this goes into my kind of final misconception or final stereotype is that and they're sort of again kind of coupled together, which is women athletes are secondary or their accomplishments matter less than the male athletes. And then kind of with this is that sports are more important to boys than girls. So want to just start off with another fact that I grabbed off of the good old
web.
The good old web. Yeah. And so in the US, the number one activity for children across all genders for like staying healthy, building positive relationships, learning leadership skills is, to absolutely no one's surprise, sports.
Yeah.
And then from there, there's a really great article. I'll post the link from it with this episode because I highly recommend everybody read it. It was super interesting. But the University of Michigan, releases this article that says it's all genders as kids are playing sports to, stay healthy, build these strong relationships. But then from there, they go on and report all of these, concerning statistics where it's like, I think like girls who were interviewed were saying that, only like 10 or 20% of them had a female coach when they were playing sports compared to the 80% of male athletes who had like a male coach.
Yeah.
Women drop sports at a way more alarming rate than men do for reasons like a bunch of different reasons. One of them was cited as being like bullied out of the sport. And so it's just, all these alarming statistics. I don't really want to go into it because this podcast is trying to provide good news, not bad news. But basically, I just want to focus on the first stat, which was if we all agree that in order to keep kids healthy in the US, we have them play sports, then how those sports are executed and coached and highlighted on TV and kind of, how they're shown to the youths, it should be equal.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
in a perfect world, right?
In
And
a
I know,
perfect world,
and I know we can't necessarily have that, across the board everywhere, with a snap of the finger. But, if we're using that to keep people healthy, which we are, then we need to prioritize both. So kind of
and not
in
just
line.
healthy. I think like, you talked about the skills building. I think there's so much to be gained from sport that
I know. I just can't imagine like, and I think it's just because all my friends too come from sports. Like I met all my best friends from sports and stuff like that. It's like, I don't understand. Like, I don't know what someone does between the ages of 6 and 27 without playing a sport. Like I just don't know what you do.
And as a parent, I'd be getting my kid in all these sports so they're not all up in my business 24/7. I'd be you're playing every sport, so it's some cheap daycare and you come home tired.
My mom put us in like those 5 a.m. swim classes. I am convinced so that we learned how to not drown. So she could just drop us off at the pool in the summer at noon and pick us up at like 5 or 6.
Yep. I was also going to say, she listens to this. I was going to say, so if you guys were by a body of water, she could sit back and have a drink and not have to worry.
Well, it turns out I found out like that was like one of the funniest things. Like it was me and Callard found out that like half the parents on our basketball team were bringing Dunkin' Donut coffee mugs just full of booze,
dude.
To our games, and I was like, oh, that like I'm like. I was like sitting like, and I was looking and watching all these parents watch like a t-ball game, and like every kid is missing the t-ball, like not even making contact. They're running down the wrong baseline. These parents are cheering, having the time. You would think they were at a Cubs game, and I'm like, why are they like that? Then I found out they're all drunk.
I'm just going to say you would do the same.
Oh. Now that I know that it's like acceptable, I was like, I take a tumbler out there.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I remember like talking to my parents and they were like, yeah, like everybody, like I'd be pre-gaming the shit out of my kid's game. I would be, oh my gosh. Like you gotta, I will be up there and like, I'll be cheering so loud and you're going to be like, wow, Hayley's so enthusiastic. And then you're going to think a little bit and you'll be like, no, she's drunk right now. I have a little buzz, the game, Hey, I think you'd have to. It'd make it so much more entertaining. I don't know how we got here.
Oh gosh, what
are your...
okay, we're good. Okay, thought it was about to cut me out.
We thought we were going to have a technical error. I like how we started this and then we got to drinking at youth sports.
And then, hey, we can bring it back around.
Reel her in. Yep.
Now, doesn't matter if, you're watching men's sports, women's sports, kids sports, any sports, your kids' sport, like, well, I hope you're watching only your kids' sport. That's a little weird if you're watching kids' sports that aren't yours. That's a little weird. In fact, don't do that.
Don't do that. You may end up with like a restraining order or something worse.
But we can all agree that, having a brew or two and watching said sports makes it that much more entertaining.
Yeah. And it can make you a better fan or it can make you a worse fan, but you're still tuned into the game, having a good time.
Yeah. And then kind of the other half of that, like of this misconception, right, is that these achievements that women athletes are doing are somehow less than the same exact achievement that a male athlete is doing. And Hayley, I'd love to get your opinion on this because I
Yeah.
almost kind of agree with this misconception. Like, I do think, like, in the mainstream currently, that is how it is touted. Like, it is not as impressive for women to
Yeah.
win an like a WNBA finals as it is for a man to win an NBA finals, which makes negative
No
sense to
sense.
me.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think you like an example I think of is like Katie Ledecky is like one of the most decorated female swimmers of all time. But like in my mind, I'm like, but Michael Phelps. But I'm like,
Right.
no, like I don't know their medal count off the top of my head, but I mean, like in terms of dominance in the sport, they kind of have very similar accolades. But like in my mind, I'm like Michael Phelps. But, it's just interesting, like how we do deem men's accomplishments as like very different. You're right. Like a WNBA championship, we're like, oh, you're talking about before we recording like Sue Bird, like how many WNBA championship. Oh, you know what? They have that great example.
Yeah,
They
they have the
have
same
that
number. Her and
commercial.
LeBron. Yeah,
Well,
her and
like
LeBron both have 4.
that commercial with Sue Bird and Steph Curry. I can't
Yeah.
think of what it's for. It's honestly, I love that commercial because
It's
funny because Steph
MVP,
Curry.
I think. I think it was MVP. I think they might have the same MVP, and her and LeBron might have the same final count.
But do you know
I
what
don't
commercial
remember.
I'm talking about? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Steph.
Like an insurance one or
It's some
something?
insurance one. It's like Steph Curry and Sue Bird. And it's funny because it's like Sue basically being like, Steph being like, I've won these many championships, and Sue's like, well, I've won this many, that's more. And he's like, well,
Yeah.
do you have 6 MVPs? And she's like, no, I have 9. And so it's
Yeah.
just like funny how, again, like you,
Yeah.
and then like Steph at the end, she's like, Steph, get over it. And he's like, I can't. Like, it's just interesting. Like, I feel like that commercial kind of epitomizes what you're saying. Like, we
Totally.
view these accomplishments as, you don't see them. You think automatically Steph Curry and you're like, oh my gosh, incredible basketball player, super decorated. And obviously, like, I think if you think Sue, if you know who Sue Bird is, you think really decorated, but I think you still see them in a little bit different, bit different lights. But I think that commercial, God, is it for Progressive? Sue Bird commercial. Whoever it is, I think it's really good commercial. What?
No,
CarMax.
Yeah. Yep.
CarMax. Shout out to CarMax for your cool commercial.
I just read that. I was watching like it was I was reading, and then it had like the little video on my Instagram reel because I was like getting into like all the pre-Olympic stuff and like did predictions and everything. And you're totally right. Like, I don't know if I'll ever like get over how much Michael Phelps was like touted as this like we went like I knew like Michael Phelps's diet like 5 years ago, like how many calories he would consume.
Michael Phelps
and
diet?
they would be like, yeah, like his like arms are longer than most other people's and stuff. And
he
like,
does have a long. You do know some Michael Phelps facts.
Yeah, like just weirdly educated on a single person.
Yeah.
And then like they literally showed like the last video or like the last thing that Katie Ledecky won, and literally like, and that is like the coolest. Like that is like the equivalent of like hitting a 3 from like a 4-point range or within someone's face. Katie wins and then watches everyone else finish.
Yeah, she like makes herself a sandwich before every time she's done.
Be just so satisfying as an athlete.
Like, and especially on the world stage.
My heart rate's coming down and yours is going up. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah, and like again, it's on the world stage. Like she's like, oh, I'm better than all these people. But I'm the best in the world. And especially swimming, it's like so quantifiable, Yeah.
I feel like there were a few of those swimming athletes that like they like get like the number like 2 like tattooed on their back so other people would know what place they were coming in when they like saw them ahead of them. And I'm like, that's super cool. I'll say it. If you're good enough to have it, that's badass. I think that's hilarious.
Mad Mac at youth swim meets. I was a swimmer back in the day.
See, I'd have to get like number like 12 on my back because I'd be like going in 10th, like, not last.
That and like the youth swim days, we'd write on our backs with a Sharpie and it'd say like, eat my bubbles.
That's awesome.
Yeah. You'd have like you'd be like second to last place.
Yeah. That would be
you.
Oh gosh.
Well, we took the scenic route, but we got there.
We did.
A few tangents. We both know that at the end of the day, if we ever choose to have children in this life, we will be bombed at our kids' sports game. We'll be putting them in sports and we'll be drinking. It'll be so entertaining.
What sport would you want your kid to play
Oh,
if you
I
had
have
one
strong
tomorrow?
feelings about this. So first off, my kid would swim because fundamentals of swimming, like your mom did, are very important for safety, and so you can drop them off at the pool and leave them for 8 hours and not worry about it. No, swimming. I did a youth track club when I was like 8 years old, and I think that was it was good for like running fundamentals and like yeah, I'd have my kids run and I would have my kids swim, and then the rest they can choose their own adventure. Like they'd probably play soccer because I'd make them. um yeah, like, and then as I say swimming, I'm like, oh wow, swim meets are so time consuming, so maybe not for me as a parent. I want my weekends a little freer than that. But yeah, for like fundamentals of sport, and also there's like a lot of people who will put their kids in gymnastics like a very young age, just for like balance and coordination and strength, and
Yeah,
then
see,
take them out of it when they're like 6 so things don't get crazy.
yeah, I was about to say, I just finally watched that documentary, and I'm like,
Oh, the Larry
ooh,
Nasser one.
yeah,
Don't even, we'll talk after this about when my roommate and I watched the Larry
yeah,
Nasser
yeah.
documentary.
I bet.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about just for like balance, so they have some balance.
That's probably a good idea.
I'm trying to build my child into a high school superstar, because we all know they won't have the genes to make it any further than that.
Yeah, and you don't want to take away time from them hitting the books either, because we know that's where they'll be able to excel.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
What a shame. What sports would you put your kids in?
um, so Brian and I have talked
I
that
also like it because you also like are married, and
right the conversation's
the
like a little bit
conversation
more real.
and the conversation expands beyond you.
Right. Yeah, like someone else gets to have an opinion on this.
Yeah, mine's party of one. So.
Yeah. So we both agreed that ideally not football, like CTE, we're just not really
Okay,
into.
quick cue. What if your child was physically, what if your kid is in a high school and he's 6'3" and like a quarter, like the starting quarter, like would you let him play? If he's physically had the like if he looked the part and was like pretty good, and maybe like
Maybe
somebody's
great. Maybe could go to Notre Dame.
okay, yeah, all right, let's maybe I'm
Well
thinking maybe
then,
more like Southern Illinois.
cool. Okay.
Full
Yeah.
ride though.
Ooh, tempting.
Would you let your kid play
Honestly,
if you thought they were physically capable,
uh,
could be good at it? I'd let
I
my
would
kid play if I thought
say
they could be good at it.
so. I think so. That's actually probably one area where Brian and I disagree. So Brian leans more
Oh.
towards like, no, like your
Oh.
brain is important, and
Okay.
we
Brian's
want
a
to
no football.
keep that going as long as possible. And
Yeah.
I can get that. But I also, as like someone who like my parents were like, you got to choose between softball, basketball, and hockey, and you got to pick the one that you really really like. And I was like, I'm not playing basketball, so I can understand. Like, I think I would cave
If they
like
really
they
wanted to.
asked. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
okay.
like I would like to hold off on that like as long as possible.
Yeah.
And given like if you're looking at me and Brian and like genetics, I'm not thinking quarterback's a thing,
But
but
you guys are
maybe
tall.
punter. Like a punter. I could see that. Punters are tall.
Yeah, I've watched you kick things.
You ever watched but Brian like almost went to the Olympics or like Kid Olympics or something for swimming. He kicks
Oh.
things really well.
I thought you were gonna say like something about punt, pass, and kick, and I was gonna have to go into my rant about punt, pass. Did you ever do punt,
No.
pass, and kick?
Oh, I did
And
actually. I scored 4th at nationals for that.
I could see you being like, because I feel like you were like a bigger, not like you were like a taller kid. Like you probably
I
kick
was a
ass.
bigger kid as well. You can say it. I've
You could,
embraced it now.
yeah,
So
like yeah. I've seen pictures of you as a kid. Like that kid looks like she could punt, pass, and kick.
loved Pepsi too. Pepsi was the one that put that on. Big proponent of Pepsi.
You were
Huge
down there.
Pepsi
You were down there
sponsors.
chugging
Just
a Pepsi, doing some punt, pass, and kick.
yeah.
And Lynn was at the bar next door, just having
The
a
nationals.
day.
No, it was at the Bears Stadium actually.
Oh yeah,
She was
in
there
Indiana.
freezing.
Oh, you're right. She was like sniffing the grass.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
cold there. And so the
Bet.
semis were at Hallis Hall indoors. And we're
Good.
like, oh, this
Yeah.
is lovely.
Yeah.
And then the actual thing was at halftime at a Bears game for like the
Wow.
nationals, and I got like 4th, and it
Wow.
was freezing and there was snow everywhere.
You didn't train in those conditions, did you?
Nope. No, I did not.
For punt, pass, and kick. Okay, back to the question. What sports would you put your kids in?
I would hope for, honestly, loved loved rowing in college. Think that could be a good option. Rowing, swimming, those would
Okay.
be cool. I'm gonna be honest, like I kind of hope not basketball. Like I've had
Yeah.
enough memories
Yeah,
to last a
you've
lifetime
been
with
scarred
that
by the
one.
AAU system.
Yeah.
You're seeking therapy to to
Yeah.
right those wrongs. Yeah, no, basketball
So
it's
probably
also just
not
like so
that.
time consuming. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, pretty much like any of those. Golf, that'd be cool. I'd go to golf matches and ride around in a little golf cart, and
I played golf I was a youth golfer.
I played in high school, yeah.
And
It
then
was
I had a meltdown.
shocking.
And I never played golf again. I was a
Um
bad sport. Don't ask my dad about my experience. He would take us golfing every Sunday. And then, yeah. And then I was a
Hockey
little
would be
bitch
super
about
cool
it.
too.
Yeah.
But again, Brian's like concussions, and I'm like, I think
Yeah.
hockey has enough rules that like I feel like it's not as common as like
Yeah, like
football,
in the
but
NHL,
maybe
they beat the shit out of each other, but I think it's a little different.
yeah, but at like the high school and like
Yeah,
kid
yeah.
level, like I feel like we weren't really even
No.
allowed. I don't know.
Were you a good skater?
Someone correct me. I actually was pretty good at hockey. I played defense because I wasn't, again, turns out, not fast on the ground, in the water, or on the ice.
But the air, still to be determined.
To be determined. But no, I was like, yeah, I was quickly got very, very comfortable
On the
being in
ice.
skates. Like I
Yeah.
could stop. Like it was very easy for me to like stop quickly, change direction, stuff like that. Like
Yeah. So when I do remember you got proposed to on ice.
I did. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And at first I thought Brian got injured. I was like, oh gosh, he just rolled an ankle. I'm like, our dinner reservations are ruined. How are we gonna get him off of here? I was like, I gotta find someone who's like
And by the time you had gotten to that thought, he was like, Maddie.
Yeah,
will you
he
marry
was
me?
like, yo, can you pay attention? I'm trying to do something here.
Oh, Dad. Yeah, I could see your kids being athletes.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. Like I said, it'll surprise us all when it turns out that like
They're theater kids.
they just want to be like a troubled artist, and I'm like, oh gosh, what am I doing?
You're like I didn't train for this. I didn't prep for this.
I know. Then I'm gonna be in therapy, being like, I don't know how to respond to this like painting. I'm like,
yeah, he didn't get the part in the school play.
I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that would be a tough one. Well,
we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how it all shakes out. Well, that was a good one.
Yeah, it was. Thank you, everyone. If you're still with us, if you haven't logged off after
if you aren't
the
group that Maddie told to leave about 12 minutes in.
Yeah, thanks for hanging in.
Thanks for staying.
Remember, if you enjoyed this podcast, to please share it with a friend. Rate, review, and subscribe. We are on almost every single podcasting platform, so you can find us. Just look for the little cartoons with the pill bottle, and
that's us.
That you got the right one. Remember, if you have a recommendation for an episode or a correction to send us, not if you're Big Mushroom, do not listen. Stop emailing me. I'm not going to respond. But if you're someone else that has a correction or a recommendation or whatever, you can go ahead and email us at thesportsmedpodcast@gmail.com. But until our next episode, I'm Maddie Portland.
And I'm Hayley Karpick.
And this has been your weekly dose of the Sports Medicine Podcast. See ya.
Woo.